Hello guys, welcome back to my channel, and in today's video we are going to see how you can use shared preferences with Flutter. Shared preferences is a package provided by Flutter which is used to store or persist data locally throughout the app. For example, if a user wants to change the app's theme from light mode to dark mode, the theme should remain in dark mode whenever he or she restarts the app. So this is one of the use cases of shared preferences. So without wasting any time, let's get started. So the first step is to create a new project, and in the YAML file of the project, add this particular package called as shared preferences. Once again, I'm not adding the version number because it can be anything when you're seeing this video. This means that I'm using the latest version. Now our step 2 would be to import the package in the file wherever we are coding the logic. So I'm coding the logic in main.dart. So I'll import the package in main.dart. You can import the package by importing shared preferences.dart. Now let's move to step number 3. In step number 3, we will code the logic of the shared preferences. As you can see on the right hand side in the emulator, the UI of the app is the app which is provided by Flutter by default. What we are going to test with shared preferences is that if we can retain this value of the count on the screen or not. For example, if we close the app now and restart it again, the count will reset to 0, as you all know. But if we use shared preferences and store the current count in a shared preference, and if we restart the app again and we load that value from share preference, then this count we can get this count back again. So how do we do that? So first of all, we'll create two variables called as counter and sprf counter. So counter will keep track of the count in the current app state basically. So now when the app is started, and now if I press plus button 5 times, so counter will have a variable called, will have the value called as 5, and sprf counter will store the value that we are receiving from the shared preferences. Now we'll create a function called as increment counter which increments the current count value. So let's go line by line in this code. First of all, you can see this final prefs, and what this line of code does is it is creating an instance of shared preferences. In the next line, whenever you tap on this plus button, the counter has to increase, right? So we have to increase the current counter state. Now in the third line, what we are doing is in shared preferences, the data is stored in the form of key value pairs. So the key of the counter is counter. So what we are doing is we are getting the value of a key value pair whose key is called as counter, and we are storing that in sprf counter. Now we have added this if else block because suppose when a user is starting his or her app for the first time, in that case there won't be any value associated with this key, right? So in that state the sprf counter will be equals to -1. This -1 is the value which we are setting it by default. So if sprf counter is in its default state, it means that the user has started the app for the first time. So what we will do is we will set the key to counter. So basically we'll map the counter key to a particular variable counter, and currently its value is 0. So initially the value in counter will be 0. Alright, great. And if the user is not starting his or her app for the first time, this code will go in this else block. In this else block, what is happening is we are setting the sprf counter to the value of the counter we get from the shared preferences, and we are doing in it set this in set state because we need to see that change on the screen, right? This 4 is basically the current value of sprf counter. Okay, and after that we increment the value of counter. So I think we don't need to increment the value of counter here because we are already incrementing the value of counter above. So I'll just remove this piece of code. Great. And now what we do is we set the integer to the new value of counter. So, and the last step would be to add this line of, we'll just call the function in the init state. So let me call the function in the init state. Great. Now what happens basically is, and also we will need to call this increment function in our floating action button. As you can see, I am already calling the increment counter function in the floating action button. So let's restart the app to test if our code is working correctly or not. So I have pressed the restart button and the emulator will restart basically. Now what we'll do is, yep, it's reset to 1. Now let me increment the count 2, 3, 4. Now I'll stop this app, and now I'll just clear it from my memory, and now I'll try to start this app again. If our code was right, the value of this variable should be 4 and not 1 again. Yeah, it's 5 basically, because the last time, because what's happening is when we are calling this increment counter in the init state, and it's going and increasing the counter by 1. That's why the 4 has become 5. So the counter should not be here, it should be somewhere else to get the correct value of our counter. So basically, the main goal of this tutorial was to see if we could persist the data locally or not. And you have seen that we have successfully persisted the data locally. And if the user restarts his or her app, we get the R value back again. And this is done with the help of shared preferences. So this was all about using shared preferences in Flutter. I have used this to store a value of integer. You can use this to store a value of boolean, string, double, etc. These kind of data types are not any advanced data types. So if you think that the video was helpful, and if you learned something from this video, then please like the video and share it among your friends. Meet you in the next video with some more amazing tutorial. Thank you guys. Goodbye.